I have a plan where I'm going to put 100 cameras in the ocean. And, of course, I can't find any life now. It's shocking. So we expand the search for 200 kilometers is a basic way of looking at that. The idea was we can build a spot somewhere and just bring in rocks and everything, and then life would attach it, and we would put cameras there, but there's no life. There's not even bacteria. There is a bit of life, of course. We found around 12 species. We're expecting and hoping at best to find 100, and they're on their way out. And I know that sounds way over the top, but what you have to take into consideration is the ocean has a couple of million unknown species. Was there. And that when we go on the coastline for 200 kilometers, taking random beaches that are accessible to everybody, so everybody can go check it themselves. And I mean, that's a hard thing to do because it impacts everybody in those communities, and we understand that perfectly well when we start doing that. That's the whole point is, if we don't do that now, then the future, you're living a dream for a very, very tiny while, because the microorganisms in the ocean have literally disappeared. We're not expecting even to find bacteria in the sand. Now, the bigger product, like clams and feeder fish and stuff like that, big up the food chain, they bioaccumulate. It doesn't affect them the same way as it affects the filter feeders on the shoreline. And the shoreline is the nursery for the entire ocean. And so the ocean is a super life. You take a glass of water and you take a sample of that and put it under a microscope. You see incredible amounts of animals. You can't count them all. A glass of water would have 75 to 100 million phytoplankton, and they create the oxygen, and they're the basis of the food chain. They also sequester carbon, so they're extraordinarily important. And as such, everything up further from that feeds the wildlife on the coastline, and then as you come up even higher, you're talking about the actual inhabitants of the coastline. Now, on the coastline, you should find babies of everything, particularly this time of year when all the sea urchins and sea stars and everything else, just 5,500 species that we recognize only, considering that, we're only finding less than 1% of 1%. And so that's inconceivable to someone like me. I've never seen that in both oceans. I've never got skunked on the coastline in my life. I never went there and not find nothing. That was the whole point of what I used to say when I was harvesting food, was that we would pick 20,000 sea urchins a day. Now, that's just a tiny percentage in one tiny area, and a diver can only touch a very tiny fragment of the areas available because of depths and times and conditions and ground swells and currents and everything else. And so when I go up to 200 kilometers of coastline, you can't fool me, because I've done every industry in both oceans and in both oceans, and I don't find anything, only just a tiny, I think when we counted 3 or 4 flies in 200 kilometers, we never seen any splats on the window in summertime with trees on both sides of the highway while we're driving between these places. That was extraordinary. That struck us on the 5th day. We started really noticing that one. We didn't see any of the normal 70 indigenous sea anemones, but not a single one. That don't mean there's not a couple hanging on, because the ocean is supposed to be a super life, so you would expect everything to repopulate immediately. In other words, if you went down with a plow in a healthy place, plowed it over, the ocean would recede that in 2 weeks, and stuff would crawl up and down deeper and fill it back up. And so when you don't see anything, and that the normal birds, 140 migratory birds that are coming around the coastline, depend upon the small fry. The fry depends upon the creatures that are eating the phytoplankton and the other tiny creatures. Now, to put it into perspective, if you took a radioactive nuclide, cesium-137, from the MOX fuel at Fukushima, and you had a glass of salt water with 75 to 100 million phytoplankton, and also full of about 1 billion other creatures, and you drop that isotope in there, it will fry all of them. The isotope will not diminish for at least 300 years, that particular one. So you can dump that now into, and I'll cut off, you can dump that into a bigger bucket and keep doing that, and it'll keep killing everything. And so we're up against something unimaginable that is released upon our entire planet for 70 years, and they equated it with a banana, but you can fill your house up with a banana, you're not going to get cancer. You can fill your house up with seawater, you can't get cancer normally, because I used to dive in it all day. I didn't see any divers with big tumors swimming around. And what ends up happening, of course, is you're killing the very existence of the planet, so the planet has to perish behind that. So if the elites wants to kill off the humans, to get rid of all the useless feeders on the planet, as we've been propagated out there that way for many years, why would they kill the other 8.8 million species? Is the question. And so what it is 2 million corporations depending on that for a living, and all the people there and their pensions and everything else, to the point of where their lie has become truth for them, and where they understood what they were doing, because they're all independent and they're all compartmentalized. And so the big picture has evaded them. And now what's going to happen, of course, as we go up the coastline, and I can guarantee you, folks, we are heading up there, it's the real deal. We have a private donor to make sure that all happens. But we have an organic movement that is pushing us. And if we don't find life, how are they going to look their children in the eye, right, Linda?
That's very true.
Right, keep going. How can you do that?
It's very true, and I had actually learned something from watching your video. I mean, I'm not the scientist, you are, and I did not realize that in the natural essence of things, the coastline usually repopulates itself. Is that correct?
Right away, too. Without hesitation, yeah. If it's a populated coastline, and British Columbia is,
yes.
And I've done the entire coastline repeatedly year after year, both oceans, and it's always the same wherever I went, just amazing amount of, you can't count it in a single spot. You can't count it in a square foot, what life should be there. Like the microorganisms and the little sand fleas and all the other little critters and creatures, and that they're all jostling for every square inch of the first 30 feet of the ocean. That is the most populated spot on the planet. And I used to always tell people there was enough protein there in the first 30 feet of water to feed the entire planet economically, because it will repopulate itself, because they'll crawl up from deeper waters to get in that sunlight. And that's what I mean. The sunlight area of the ocean, the first 30 feet, is taken up by superior genetic selection of millions of years of evolution. They have fought their way to the top. And so it was a very vibrant, vigorous environment. And to see it missing has raised every hair on my, I would say my back, but I don't actually have hairs on my back, but it raised every hair on my head to the point of surrealness, where you don't even want to wake up in the morning and face it again. And I mean, who's going to get out there and pull this off and get up that coastline and actually know boat industries perfectly, know the nuclear industry perfectly, know how to handle the ocean, 26,000 islands, 4,000 kilometers at least, and then we're 1,000-kilometer drive, 1,000-mile drive, and then another 1,000 kilometers in the Baltic Sea before winter sets in. We need a real operation. That's what we're putting together from scratch. We just got ourselves a lovely, absolutely gorgeous history on a boat. It's a search and rescue from a yacht club, and it was used to go out and rescue people. That's all it was used for, was to go out and rescue people. So it has a very, very appropriate history to it. That's all it's ever done. And we have it independent today. We went down to buy the spotlights, the radars, the sounders, the plotters, the GPSs, the flares, of course, the EPs, the we got devices that we throw in the water, or the boat falls in the water and tips over, which is not likely with this boat. This is a search and rescue top notch, 22 foot. It's meant to go anywhere and everywhere on the coastline. It's spotless. The engine is gorgeous, and it's disposable, because that's how this works. All of this is about those 90 days and definitively taking away the narrative from everybody out there and trying to move forward with some kind of coercion of life. Because as it stands now, if we don't do this in a year's time, the entire planet is going to lose their minds with a narrative. And that's why you're doing what you're doing, Linda, and many other people like yourself, who are out there and trying to get people to come on board and understand it's not a game. It really, truly has happened to us. And that the only way to get the narrative out there was to go up and videotape it, picture everything, take samples, microscopic, get that public every single day, and just push back like nothing we've ever even conceived before, because that's what we do. It's relentless. For 9 months, I haven't stopped. I don't even consider anything else on the planet. There's nothing else on the planet that matters to us. I mean, getting this job accomplished so everybody can have a debate. and we are going to accomplish this mission, but I don't think anybody can say that this is going to be easy or fun or, you know, no matter how much comfort, you can give me a 500-foot boat with 700 scientists. You can give me billions of dollars worth of equipment. It won't change the equation. It can't. Money can't fix it. And it's not going to make it any better for me. The fact is, I have to go out there independently and document it and make sure everybody can come behind me and get the same stuff, because we have to have that debate. And without platforms like yourself to actually get out there and push, you know, it's going to be really hard to keep the narrative where people don't panic. Because I can understand that, right? So GMO, if you get rid of that as a sign of good faith, I think we can almost look at our governments in the eye again for a while. And if they were to bring and give everybody in every community in their mailboxes organic seeds and tell no more pesticides, there's not enough insects left to kill anymore, and that we have to stop and try to repair something. We could take 4,300 peer-reviewed academic studies that are published every day and put them to task on every little issue each day. Another 4,300 universities and professors and their students and their monetary and their expendables all ready to go. If we had a meteorite coming at our planet, that's what we would do.
Right.
Yet we haven't reached that stage where the awareness is, we normally wouldn't have some of these simple signs of good faith, acts of good faith, like all the institutions getting to work. If the government come out and say, we've got a big problem, the ocean is dying, we're going to put every institution in our country to work this out. Would that make you feel good, Linda?
No.
At least you're honest.
I mean, I know what you're doing is a great thing, but I feel like the government, whether it's my government, your government, I mean, that was my next question. Why aren't they speaking about this? I think what you're doing is fantastic, and we absolutely need more people like you to do this, to speak up, to go on these expeditions, to prove to others what is going on. Why aren't they speaking out about this?
Because the whole culture is designed around it. You know that a banana has nothing to do with radiation. Yet all the experts in the media tell us that. And so they don't call them out, they don't correct them, they don't go out and research it and find out it's homeostasis, which means it's harmless. It means your body couldn't hold any more normal banana potassium-40. But every single time you come in contact with a man-made ionized radiated element, particle, atoms, it sequesters in your body forever. And it causes these tumors, and different types of radioactive material causes different types of tumor and autoimmune deficiencies. And so what the plan was, of course, is they fleece everybody, they fill up the shelves with the GMO, and that makes everybody lethargic and makes everybody feel not good. Of course, when you eat organic, you feel really good. You want to take your pet for a walk, you want to do your dishes.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you feel like you're really something. So the government has nothing to gain by empowering our bodies, and as such would empower our mind, and everything to gain by making us subservient and making us, once again, lethargic, where we don't have what it takes to stand up and recognize what's going on. They don't even have it because they're eating the same thing, right? And so the system is designed that way to have the dumber holding on to the population that are unwillingly indoctrinated from the day they were born, that a banana somehow is equated to E equals MC squared.
Right.
Right. And so that's why the system, it can't live by, because everything becomes a lie when you tell the truth. Their whole history becomes one big lie. All those lies are covered up, gets exposed. The children can't look them in the eye. They can't look anybody in the eye. And so you lose all trust. And if you lose that, of course, in society, in this day and age, then what could possibly, you know, when you tax everybody all the time to the point where there's nothing left, and you have to do that to keep the government alive, then it's supposed to be a revolution. And so rather than a revolution, they're having an extermination. They're allowing it to happen. Because they understand what a radioactive element is. They told us it's a banana. They told us like walking in the sunshine. They told us like getting on an airplane. And these are nothing to do with it. And so they can't come out and tell the truth because they have no future, period. They have no pensions. They have no way of making a living, and no one will like them anymore. And when they find out, of course, now the ocean is dead, they can't hide it anymore. So they're hanging on in the hopes we won't notice. They're hanging on in the hopes that we can't work that out. and they're hanging on in the hopes of saying that it doesn't exist. It couldn't make it here, that the jet streams didn't exist, and that the ocean currents are not real. And they live in this little tiny fantasy paradigm where people actually fall for it, because most people don't have anybody to look up to. Most people don't have anybody they admire in their personal life, because they all been indoctrinated through the same machine that is about to end in 60 days. The system is going to crumble in 60 days. And our way forward is to recognize that and to try to come up with solutions rather than their solution, obviously, because they're the ones who lied, the academics, the professors, the scientists. They were the ones who come out and told us. It was like a banana, but yet they had the education to know better. And our media had the education to go flush that out and say, no, a banana got nothing to do with it. But they didn't. See? And so they analyzed everything. Go ahead.
Something is going on, because in the state of California, and this was a survey and a poll that was just recently taken, and I don't have the direct figures, but it had stated that all the newborns that are born right now, from the beginning of 2014 of January to now, have had a 50% increase in thyroid problems. These are babies. So,
go ahead. Hang on one second. I want you to remind you that the radioactive iodine 131, 132, 133, and now the 129 we found out was 30 times more than 131. That's got a 15 million year half-life, sequesters in women's breasts. And so when the baby, of course, is being breastfed, it's getting major doses. Yeah, that's what's going on. And it was discovered that almost all breast cancers, by accident they discovered it, was because of ionized radiated elements, not because of anything in nature. See? And so man-made ionized radiation released from wars, from dumping in oceans and everything else, that's the effect of breast cancer, folks.
Okay. What do we do about this as not just as an American, as a Canadian, as a people in general? What do we do about this problem?
It's a brilliant question, by the way. I'm so glad you asked it. Well, what we got to do is we got to take away their narrative, like the bananas and walking in the sunshine and flying on airplanes and x-rays and dental x-rays and chest x-rays. These are all just, every time, when you ingest a radioactive particle, you're getting a chest x-ray every moment of your life, if not several, depending on the particle. The particle will put out many becquerels a second, and a becquerel is a disintegration, but a becquerel is also powerful enough to flip over a grain of sand. And so that's why your body, when you ingest it, your body is attacking it. So what you got to do, first off, is once again, you got to get rid of the GMO, and you got to get organic. You got to get it all out of your, because what GMO does to you is, and everybody else, of course, is it makes you vulnerable. It's got glyphosates and formaldehyde in it. These are carcinogenics into the DNA. This doesn't exist in normal food. And so they took out most of the parts per million of potassium, magnesium, calcium, and they took it in such a great quantity that you can't call it food anymore. In other words, there was 6,000 parts per million of calcium in corn. They engineered it out to 114 parts per million. There was around 3,800 parts per million of potassium. They engineered it down to about 112 parts per million. So completely took away the nutritional value of it, to the point where you need 428 corn on the cob of GMO to equal the same amount of calcium as a single organic corn on the cob. And so you're leaving yourself vulnerable. And so as a society, we need to get rid of the GMO and bring in the organic. And what the organic does, it helps unplate your blood. There's a few other ways around this, is structured water. Now, structured water is going to sound a little odd to folks, I know, but you've got to realize the world is truly magical. Now, it's been done in experiments that if you talk to water that you got from your sink, like you talk to a plant, if you talk to it, you can change the structure of the water back. And it's been shown in universities and institutions that when people dying of terminal diseases were given structured water, that their blood unplated. And what that is unbelievable, see? That your blood, that's how blood, your blood cells are unplated naturally. But when they get sick and you're old and feeble and you have these autoimmune deficiencies and cancers and everything, the blood plates up. And that's ultimately what is killing you, and will kill you, certainly. And that's what chemotherapy does to you, too. It plates up your blood. And so you only got 2% of survival with leukemia. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. It's murder. But if you took structured water, and we see it in samples where they gave people, took a sample of their arm, put it under the microscope, it was all plated up, gave them structured water, and then 20 minutes later took another sample of their arm, and it was all starting on plate. It was unbelievable.
Now, what is structured water exactly?
Well, structured water is just natural water,
okay.
And it came from a, say, mountain spring, right? It's like your dad was a native Canadian. My son's native Canadian. But they understand water from wells really well. I mean, that's something really popular here, where you get to know them and you go find out where to get some good water. For most people, that would be the best thing you can do, is get well water, river water, structured water, but you don't want anything from a tap. You don't want anything that went to an electric motor. You don't want anything that had salts or chemicals added to it, and because that changes the structure of the water. And so the most important thing is also DCA. Now, DCA has been shown to reduce all tumors, breast, pituitary glands, brain cancer, lung cancers, breast cancers, reduce the tumors by 70% in 2 weeks. Because what it does is it unplates your blood. And you can go to a local pharmacy and ask if they have a compound chemist. And if they got a compound chemist, they can make the DCA there. It's a benign chemical. You don't need a prescription. There's no patent on it. And it has been proven in repeated studies to have the same properties in the other studies, where it reduced tumors by 70%. And so you can live a lot longer. But none of this really matters unless we stop Fukushima. And none of it matters unless we clean up what we got on the planet and try that. Because that's the only way we can even start to try, is we have to, every population out there has to go to work and clean it all up, just to stop it from constantly hemorrhaging into our environment. Hanford has 41 miles of unlined trenches that they dump the yellow cake from the plutonium production, and it's unlined and it's not buried. They also dump 450 billion gallons directly into the soil in the 50s and 60s of the nuclear waste. Now, they done that in the Tetra River in Russia in the late 40s. They were dumping that same stuff into the river. They evacuated 7,500 communities and 9,000 square miles. Right, that's how rotten that stuff is. Now, we have it not only in Afghanistan, where there's 5 million orphans, where there's nothing but depleted uranium. It was unimaginable what they've done in that place, and Iraq. So we've got to take up 6 inches of topsoil in both of those countries. We have to take on. Japan is destroyed forever. The coastlines are destroyed in the Pacific Rim by the looks of things. I hate to say that it is, but I'm getting reports from all over the island of Vancouver Island of people having finding the same stuff as I found, the same species as we've already found. And so a lot of people want to go into the oil and say they've seen a crow, or they've seen an eagle, or they've seen some fish. Well, they're further up the food chain, but as everything else dies off, they got nothing to feed on, only potato chips and french fries and stuff like that. So you'll see them hanging around for a bit while those bigger species, but the fish will all have to die off really soon. And that is what we're worried about. At that point, the planet might panic. And so if we can get up there, and we will, and we'll go along that coastline for 60 days, and we're loading it up on the site. I think within 2 weeks, every nuclear scientist on the planet is going to be buying those Marcho Grouches glasses with the mustache. And you know what I mean? You don't want people to look the kids in the eyes, because they want to look their children in the eyes. So that's their sanctuary, is being able to go home, see? And we're going to take that away from them deservingly and pathetically, because they had the opportunity. And what we done was we sent the homeless into Fukushima to do the most dangerous, difficult, the most courageous job on the planet, and they don't even have a clue what they're doing. Most of them can't read or write. Most of them are alcoholics, and they're sort of having all kinds of accidents all the time, all kinds of extra releases with no way forward until it's too late. And so, once again, we've got to kind of find a way past all the hate and the animosity coming from people, the instant knee-jerk reaction of, yelling and screaming routine. I went through that, trust me. And, I went down the road of how do we go about proving it? Because they're not going to let us do it. They're not going to do it for us. And how do we go about taking away their narrative? And then we can have a debate. And so the plan was 60 days, photograph around 4,000 kilometers, and you don't see the marine life then, well, that means the rest of the Pacific Basin's also gone too. You can't have one without the other. And we don't find bacteria on the beach, and we didn't. It wasn't even a smell. We only seen a couple of insects. We never seen anything, indigenous populations of animals or creatures, just a random scatter. You could put everything we've seen in a wheelbarrow, certainly in the back of a truck, if you include all the birds and everything else, just everything is missing. And what are we going to do? I have to get up there and beg people to set us free. And finally, we have a donor step free. I'm not humiliating myself by doing that, see. I could never do something like that, but here I can. Here, and now we don't have to. And what we're going to do is extraordinary, where everybody chipped in, and everybody got us out the gate, and then after that, everybody's going to have to pick up the pieces. It's going to be really bad. So this is not, there's nothing good about this. There's nothing good coming out of this, right?
If we don't stop this leak in Fukushima, basically, we're done. It's as my old grandfather would have said, it's acquaintance. He was from Brooklyn, New York, had a heavy accent, and it's just, we're done. We're finished.
Yeah. Because we're taking out the basis of the food chain, and we're taking out the oxygen, 50% of the oxygen production through the killing of the phytoplankton, and they're extraordinarily vulnerable. Of course, everything on the ocean, as you can live for a little bit longer, but not much, because those plumes are coming into Fukushima 1,440 minutes a day. And what happens is every day there's around 50 square miles. After 1,300 days, but after 131 days, it already hit our coastline, and 130 days behind it was another 1,440 minutes of plumes. And so it's not like a single plume came out and it's dispersing. It doesn't work that way. It's plume after plume after plume. It's like St. Patty's Day, where you pour dye in the river, but you never stop. And say the river is 4,000 miles long, and every day, every minute, you're putting 1,000 pounds of dye into the river, every minute of green dye. And so at the end of 3.5 years, I say to you, get in a plane, here's all the fuel and plane and cameras. I want you to fly all the way down that 4,000 mile river and tell me where the dye stopped at the end of 3.5 years, 1,440 minutes a day, putting a pickup truck into that river. But if you would get all the way to the ocean, it still wouldn't stop every estuary, every lake, and everything from the rain, convection, evaporation would have just been covered in that dye, because you didn't stop for 3.5 years. So what we're facing is the same thing with stuff that's radioactive, and it's not going to go away forever.
Oh, it's called extinction. And that's what it is. We're going to become extinct. Mankind is making us extinct.
Because we don't get an opportunity. And what we're looking at is trying to buy time so we can get all these institutions to come on board and treat it as a meteoroid coming at us instead of a banana. And what we can end up with is something like, if we go up north and we see the North Passage is dying and there's still life, we can knock a mountain down and block it off. Now it freezes for many years sometimes, and so we can create an artificial current on the other side in the Atlantic, and the winds and everything else will grab it, and we can still buy time. And so how crazy is it that I'm talking that way? Obviously, if you listen to most of the conversation tonight, then you would understand that is one of the few things we got left to work on, and we got to get up there and find out. And they're not going to tell us, but it looks like they're not going to get in our way. It looks like they're not even going to bother us. It certainly looks like, and then it should be. I mean, it's no good for them to come up to me on the ocean and ask me for anything, because I'm going to fall down laughing if they do. It's hopeless. I'll have kinks. I say, what? Shouldn't you be looking for your pensions? Because they're gone, like all the fish in the ocean. It's ridiculous for anybody to approach me from the government without trying to help me, without trying to set us all free. And we have a donor tonight who has put his back in there each time, done everything he could to get us out there as quick as he could. We keep running into issues because of the system that is in place that is collectively punishing everybody on the planet, and trying to keep them in the dark for just a little bit longer, for just another couple of months. They're willing to do that. They'd rather give it all away, let it all die for sure before it's all gone. But what problem is, the planet will lynch these people. The planet is going to lose its mind when it realizes they're killing the Pacific permanently. How can you tell your child that one? Go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry.
No, please. You're fascinating, Dana. I love listening to you. I live in an area, I married into a commercial fishing family, and they're no longer in the fishing industry, but I have friends who are fishermen. And the fishermen are telling me that when they catch their fish, here in my neck of the woods on the California Pacific coast, they're being told that just ignore what your Geiger counters are reading for the radiation of your fish. It is okay. Because some of the fishermen have taken upon it themselves to put do the Geiger counter when they catch their fish, and whether it's their salmon or their, tuna or whatever.
Sure.
And when they presented this to Fish and Game, and I can't say the name, they told me I can use it as an example, but don't bring up the boat, don't bring
sure.
the fishing fan, the Fish and Game will kill us. And I said, I understand, but Fish and Game are telling the fishermen it's okay. It's been approved by Fish and Game. Just because the levels of the fish are high, it's approved by the FDA and and this and that and every other organization. Unbelievable.
I'm sorry, that's just a gallows laugh, folks. Go ahead, Linda. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're not cutting me off.
You just gave me shivers as you told me that. I was like, oh my goodness. How do they even sleep at night?
Well, I
justify it, right?
I don't even want to eat anything anymore.
No, I can't. No.
So would you say it's not wise to eat seafood anymore? Is seafood in the past?
Yeah, seafood is gone. It's off the table forever. Because it bioaccumulates all kinds of radioactive elements, not just the cesium, right? There's 2,000 other ones that they don't tell you about, on purpose, of course, because you might ask a question, like, what's the name of it? And they'll always call it, well, it's national security, or it's military applications. But what's it doing in the ocean killing shit? Excuse the language, but what's it doing escaping to our environment? See, the big lie was that everything was in sarcophagus. Oh yeah, it's dangerous, but we're going to have it in sarcophagus. It'll be there for hundreds of thousands of years, and everything is hunky-dory. They can't do it, because if you actually contain it in a sarcophagus where nothing can escape, the noble gases that build up from that chain reaction, from the physical production, the hydrogen will detonate anything, because nothing can contain it. It'll blow it up, and you will lose that site. See? And so you won't be able to get back on that site. So all the containments are leaking into our environments all the time. All the nuclear power plants are bottling up 120,000 liters into our community every day for each spent fuel pool. And so a spent fuel pool is full of radioactive rods from the chain reaction, and because they went through this madness that shouldn't exist, that these elements are not even created by the sun. See, the sun, they tell you the chain reaction of a nuclear reactor is like the sun, but it's not. The sun creates elements. Nuclear destroys them. And then these man-made ionized radiated elements, they shouldn't even be, and that's what nuclearproctologist.org is. It's a nuclear policy think tank. And we advocate never letting these things off our planet because the universe is not acclimated to it, and neither are we. And as such, I think about how they say that it's like a banana, yet they went to university. And how come the people who interviewed him or wrote the story doesn't say, yes, he went to university, and I tried to talk sense into him, but he still insists on saying that a banana is like man-made radioactive. The minute they say something like that, the whole Jericho wall comes down on their head, and everybody becomes awake immediately. We're living in a land where it's where they live, where they beat each other up in the alley when they finally put the sunglasses on the other guy's face, and then he actually sees it and he gets it. Yeah, oh yeah, I get it now. Well, that's what media, and that's why you do what you do, Linda. That's what media is doing to everybody. They got them in that paradigm, and they can't break free. But these people, in a very short while, will be hated worse than everything on the planet because they lied so much. They can't even look their own friends anymore in the eyes now. What's going to be like in another 2 months when this breaks? And it doesn't matter if they kill me and take me out. You can't stop this from coming out. We already kicked the can out there, and everybody can go do it themselves. Get up at low tide, walk down on the beach and take some pictures and do some comparisons, and you can see if the effect that you're reaching. And everybody done that tomorrow morning, we wouldn't have to go. We would have a debate. I would hang around for the debate, right? We are going because people won't do that, and they don't understand the significance of what I'm saying and how simple and mindless it is to walk down to your local ward at low tide and get pictures of the various lowest areas. Yeah, Because there's people like me out there will jump on it and analyze it and then use it as a tool to bludgeon the opposition and apologists.
Now, Dana, we have just about 5-6 minutes left here, and I wanted to ask you, and you don't have to answer this, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, that's fine, but because of what you're doing, have you received any threats yourself?
Just incredible amount of threats.
Really?
It's terrible. I got people want to light me up with a blowtorch if I don't walk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I got them on still got them on my phone there.
Oh.
I got an amazing amount of death threats. I get amazing amount of ignorance anyway, of course, but these are categorically threats. They're not even afraid. Right? They're not even scared.
Oh,
Can you imagine doing stuff like that? And of course, I had an incident a few days ago where I was set up in order to take me out of this, because I don't know, these people can't go down. They say they watch my video, my presentations, where we went to the low tide lines. That's what we studied, was the low tide lines. And they couldn't even do that. And they say that I'm full of lies and that I'm manipulative and everything else. When all you got to do is go to my site, nuclearproctologist.org, go to section 13, and you can go to the 200. You can go to every one of those beaches behind me. And if there's life there, all you got to do is take a picture. And every word I've ever said is discredited. Everything I've ever done is useless. Everything I ever say is hopeless. And everybody should shun me immediately and appropriately. But you can't. Nobody can.
No. Well,
Yes.
Everyone that's listening tonight, I want all of you to say some prayers for Dana, give him some positive energy, light, and love. Now, you're going on expedition soon, and you return in, is it correct, 60 days?
Well, yeah, we leave, because I know you only got a few moments left. We're leaving, hopefully, this coming Tuesday. So we're out the gate really fast here. If not, it'll be Wednesday, and then we'll be posting up there every day. We're down for 60 days up to the north. That's just a rough figure. If it takes longer, it takes longer. But what we're going to do at 60 days is we're going to break off, drive up to the Nuktuk in the Yellowknife, Northwest Territory to the Baltic Sea, and we're going to launch it up there and try to cover around 500 kilometers on each side before winter sets in. And then we'll come back and finish off the trip down the Pacific and come. We're going up to Alberta to have a little summit, because we think by that time that the world will wake up and come on board, and that we might have a way to move forward without hate and animosity. And that's all we want, is just an opportunity to have that debate, and so that people have an opportunity, and they're not terrorized and terrified, and they're not living in a police state, because the police can't control what's coming. See, nothing can, only logic. And the people waking up and hearing everything and coming to a conclusion on their own that we all got to fight for the entire, whatever species are left, we have to fight for them. Because they ain't got a voice, and they don't deserve it.
And for our children and our children's children and beyond. I mean, this is their planet the planet we're leaving them is sad. It's terrible.